Hi, it's Russ from Pro Tools Expert, and I've been having a bit of a mess around trying to figure out if there's a free alternative to using Satellite. Now, Satellite has recently come as a free addition to Pro Tools HD11 users, but some of you don't have HD and some of you aren't using Pro Tools 11. So if you're on a Mac, I'm going to show you a really cool way by using Ethernet to connect the two computers together. So you can have, this is two computers, both running Pro Tools and both of them running synchronized together. So people would say, well, why would you do that? Well, if you've got two computers and you want to run 10 and 11 together, you can do that for a start. But that's just a bit of, in a sense, a stopgap until the whole 11AAX thing gets figured out. But there are times when you need more horsepower, and you might have one session. So you might have a monster session you can run on one machine and then have a second session running on another machine. So I've got a Mac Pro and a Mac Mini. Now, this in a way is harking back to the early days of synchronization when we only had 24-track machines. We would sync two together with a synchronizer, so we're doing effectively that. Now, you can do it for free. This is the great news about it. So what I have so far, I have a Mac Pro and I have a Mac Mini and I have an Ethernet cable, not Wi-Fi, but Ethernet, just plugged in the back of the both of them. So they're both connected and talking to each other now. And so I can now come to browse across to my Mac Mini and share the screen on that and see it there. So there it is. There's my Mac Mini screen. So that's how I get control of it, and that's how I can see it when I'm working on it. So I have this first is my Mac Pro. Now the way it works is this. There's a bit of work to do, so I'll try and take it slowly. This, you might have seen this in your Audio MIDI setup now. If you haven't been to Audio MIDI before, then just type Audio MIDI into Spotlight and you'll find it. And then in there you'll find in the MIDI window, so make sure you're in Show MIDI window. At the moment it's in Show MIDI, so you don't need to hide it or bring it back. So we're in the MIDI studio, double click on here and this screen will come up. And what you've got to do is set this up on both machines. So on here, the first thing I do is I go plus here, then I name a session, create a session. Then I name it, so I've named it Mac Pro and Mac Pro. And then, so this now, and that's done, that's it. And the only other thing you want to do is make sure you connect it to anyone, so anybody can see it on the network. And the only network I've got is between the two computers, so I've got no worries about people getting to it. So I've already set up the Mac Mini, so you can see it there. So if I come to the Mac Mini now and go to Audio MIDI Setup, and go to the Show MIDI window and double click here, Network. You can see Mac Mini. So I do the same on the Mac Mini. So Mac Mini, and I can see now there's a Mac Pro, because what I then do is just go click on there and go connect. It's simple as that, and make sure this is on anyone. So now, over Ethernet, I've got these two computers being able to pass MIDI. So that's the first part of it. So we can close that here. Then I come to Pro Tools. So that's going to load up there. So while that's loading up there, I may as well come here and load up Pro Tools 10. So on this machine, it's got Pro Tools HD 10 on this and Pro Tools HD 11 on this. But you could do this in vanilla. It's got nothing to do with being HD at all. And I've got a session there, so I'm going to load that up on this machine. And there's a reason I'm loading it up for this, and I'm going to just show you. So while that one's loading, I'm going to come here. It's a bit like a cookery program, this. So I'm going to go to Setup. I'm going to go to Peripherals, come to Synchronization, and the generator port has to be that new network I set up, Network Mac Pro. So I click that, and we're done on there. And the only other thing you want to do on here then is make sure in your transport you have this on, Generate MTC, because we use MIDI timecode to do this. So here's the number 2 session now in HD 10. So this is over on my Mac Mini. So I'm using screen sharing. I'm going to use a great app called Cinch, which means I can just have these split screen. So I have Boom on here already. I've got a bit of Boom programmed in. So this needs to do some receiving. So in here we go to Setup and we go to Peripherals and we go MTC, Reader Port, Network Mac Mini. So that's done. Job done. The other thing you've got to make sure of as well is you need to go to each window in your setups and go to Sessions and make sure that the session settings are the same, sample rate, and they both have the session start time the same here, and the timecode rates are right. Because if they're not, they're going to slip out of time. And MIDI timecode has a bit of slippage at times as well, so you want to do everything you can to keep these as tight as possible. So now those have got to match. So session setup in the 10 version and session setup in the 11 version. So then if you put that on, that's now waiting for sync. You see it down here. It says waiting for sync. So if I press play on this one now, you see they're now playing together. Now the one thing you want to do straight away is you want to make sure on your timeline, I'm going to come to this one for a second, let's make this smaller for a minute. You want to make sure on your timeline that you've got probably 2 bars before it starts, because MIDI timecode takes a little bit of time to pick up. So the next question is, where's the audio coming from? Well, the audio can come from a number of sources. So if you had a mixer, you could do it via a mixer, but I'm actually bringing it back into Pro Tools using 2 channels of my Omni into the front two inputs of the Omni. Actually, I'm waiting for a digital cable converter so I can take the digital out the back of the Mini, and I'll bring that back in. So I've got 2 coming back in on a HD. Now, if you were using native systems, you could do it via Soundflower and pump it around that way as well. So, but as I say, I'm bringing the audio back in that way because I'm just monitoring. So basically, this could be running a huge session. I could be monitoring it as a stereo stem in Pro Tools and carry on working on my 11 session, which is cool. Now, a really important thing you've got to do is that there's some slippage in the sync. And let me show you what I mean by that. So I've got the click coming back at the moment. And what I'm going to do first is just get the clicks on. So I'm going to just have the nothing but click coming back. And just the click on this one as well. So we just turn that off. Now, one of the things you've got to do is make sure that slippage is fixed. I'll show you how you do it. So in MIDI, we've got to change the global MIDI offset plus or minus to make up the time difference. Now, for me, it was 953 samples, but for now, I'm going to take it out and show you how I figured that out, because this is important. So if I take it back out now and play these 2 with the clicks going, hear what happens. So there's my slippage. Now the way to figure out what the slippage is pretty straightforward. I just have the click coming back off this machine. I'm going to record it onto a channel here. Just a couple of bars will do. Now I've recorded it. So we go in now and we zoom in on this one here, and I'll make this full screen for a second. Zoom in on this. Let's have a look at this, and we can see straight away as we get closer, they're out. So what I'm going to do, I'll go into the grid, and then I tab to the transient, there, as close as I can get it, that's about right. Command E. Now if I select this portion of space, and I have this here set to samples, it tells me 941 samples is the difference between there and there. So I come back to this Mac, Setup, Preferences, and I put a global offset. Now you'll know if it's right because you get a kind of phasey sound where the two clicks are working together. So let's turn that back off again now. Let's have a listen to this now. That's pretty close. Now you can keep messing for a bit longer, but basically now we have these 2 Pro Tools systems working together. Now don't worry about things like the timer. So if we looked at the timer here for a second, you'll see they're slightly out. That's just literally the lag on the picture. It's got nothing to do. Use your ears, as you should always do with audio. So there we go. I've got a Mac Pro running 11, a Mac Mini running 10, and the 2 are working together. Now the other cool thing is as well, is because over MIDI, if you wanted to, you could use this Pro Tools system over here to record all your MIDI on. So if I go here and just take that out of mute for a second, come to this track here, and I choose, in fact, we'll create a new track, new. And I'll put the piano in as some instrument. Just load up MIDI Grand. So, and I'll come here and I'll create a new MIDI track. Let's just put that in. So, and then I'm going to send this out of Network Mac Pro. Turn that on. There we are. We now have this piano. And virtually zero lag. And of course it will be, if you get any lag anyway when you're tracking, we're going to pull it all back anyway when it plays it back because of the synchronization. So there we go. That's how you get two machines talking to one another, two Pro Tools systems running together without the need of satellite. Now satellite offers some other features of course, but most people just want to be able to lock the two together. So there we go. Go and have a play. Got any extra tips on top of this that you found while trying to do this? Then let me know. There's probably a Windows alternative to this, but I'm a Mac user. So there we go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.